Tii Item 503, February 28th, 2021, iOS 14.5, Betas 1 and 2. In this episode, we talk about iOS 14.5, Betas 1 and 2, and some great new features, Apple Podcast app, privacy, iPhone 13 rumors, plus listener feedback and more, all covered in depth starting after the intro.
Welcome to Today in iPhone.
I like it a lot.
Today in iPhone.
Hey, cool!
Oh yeah!
My beautiful iPhone, which I never have out of my hand and that I do everything with and has become an extension of who I am.
Today's episode is brought to you by Freshly. For a limited time, get $40 off your first two orders. Go to freshly.com/TII to learn more. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Rob, and you are listening to the Today in iOS podcast. First up, I want to thank Jeff for sending in the music you hear in the background. Jeff wrote, "Hi Rob, I made this song called Hide and Seek with my iPhone using the Garageband app. For free downloads and more music, follow me at JeffJ6 on Twitter. Regards, Jeff J." Thanks, Jeff, for the music. And folks, I will put the full song at the end of the episode. Also want to thank Lawrence for sending in this artwork for the episode. Lawrence wrote, "Hi Rob, you sounded hungry for some artwork for the program, so I clipped out this photo taken on my February 2014 trip to Asia. We were standing watching the sun set from the rooftop of an abandoned centuries-old Buddhist monastery in Pagan, Myanmar. This Burmese woman was making sketches while the temple behind her glowed in the rays of the sinking sun. I snapped this photo with my iPhone 5 for this rendition. I cropped and edited my original picture with Snapseed app, and then added the text using the app over. Regards, Lawrence McFarland." Well, thank you, Lawrence, for this artwork. Sorry it took so long to get it on the show. And folks, you can see this artwork in the free Tii app via the bonus button for episode 503 or at Instagram.com/todayinios and also at Facebook.com/todayinios. If you have some artwork and or music you have created on your iOS device that you would like to share with the audience, please email it to me at todayinios@gmail.com. Please make sure to include which app or apps you use to create said artwork and or music. I haven't had any new artwork sent in a while, so folks, send in some artwork you've created on your iOS device. I'd love to see it. And make sure it's square, please. Thank you. A little over a month ago, Apple released iOS 14.4 Goldmaster to the public. And in those 32 plus days, Apple has released 0 double dot updates for it. I am hard pressed to remember the last time Apple released a single dot update and then went a month without a double dot update. So kudos, Apple, kudos. This means my recommendation on the last episode to release the hound still stands. And once again, given the security patches, it's even more highly recommended than before that you update now than it was, well, a month ago when I first recommended it. But that was the past. Let's talk about the future. As in iOS 14.5 and iPad OS 14.5. Apple has released to devs and beta testers Betas 1 and 2 of 14.5. And when I say 14.5, I am meaning iOS 14.5 and iPad OS 14.5. There's also tvOS 14.5, and if I'm talking about that, I will say tvOS 14.5. The other beta update was watchOS 7.4, which I may just say 7.4, just to make sure we're all on the same page and allow me at the same time to shorten things up a bit. Here's what is new. And this first one you will be familiar with if you have a Mac. And it is iPhone unlocking with the Apple Watch. This also requires watchOS 7.4. Apple is introducing a new feature called Unlock with Apple Watch. Go to Settings, then to Face ID and Passcode. Once there, scroll down and turn on Unlock with Apple Watch. This is being introduced to help with those wearing a mask. Again, you must turn this feature on yourself. It is not turned on by default, nor should it be. Now, there are limits with what this can do. Authentication for Apple Pay or Apple Store purchases will still require full Face ID authentication or you entering a passcode on the iPhone. But if you are out at the store and just need a quick check of the Notes app to see what else your significant other wanted you to pick up, this is a nice addition. Same with a quick check for texts or emails or Twitter. The most anticipated / needed and, by the way, hated by Facebook feature in iOS 14.5 is app tracking transparency, or what I will call how it should have always been mode. This is where apps have to ask users to opt in, not opt out, opt in to being tracked. Opt in is the only ethical way to do this. This is a great feature for all users. If you follow me on Twitter, you know there are basically 3 things I talk about, and privacy is the top of those 3 things. With iOS 14.5, apps will need to ask for a user's to opt in to allow access to their advertising identifier and track that user's activity across other apps and websites. You, as the user, will have the option now to control if apps and advertisers can track you. And again, that is how it should have always been. Kudos for Apple for making it so now. If you want to make sure you have this set up correctly, go to Privacy, then Tracking, and then make sure Allow Apps to Request to Track is turned on, i.e. green is showing behind the slider button and the button is slid to the right. Facebook is making a big stink about this, which right there tells you it's a great feature, right? If they don't like it, pretty much a good idea that it's a good idea. Heck, even Facebook's own employees were questioning Facebook's leaders on the stink they were making. Ethically, Facebook is on the wrong side of this debate. Next up on user privacy will be the podcasting space, because once this rolls out, the one place in the iOS world where personal info will still be shared and users tracked without any option to opt in will be via podcast apps, including Apple's own Apple Podcast app. As Tim Cook said, there is no reason to be tracking users like this. Advertising worked without tracking. Heck, to put things in perspective, during the 4.5 hours of the Super Bowl, sorry, my Chiefs didn't win, but during that 4.5 hours, $545 million was spent on advertising on one single network channel. That is more than all the ad dollars spent in podcasting for the previous 6 months for all 2 million plus podcasts combined. Think about that. And not one single watcher of the Super Bowl was tracked via the ad spend. Again, next up on Apple's crosshairs, hopefully, will be those in the podcasting space that track listeners. FYI, that will never happen with this podcast. We are on Libsyn, and podcasts on Libsyn do not track listeners. Those on Megaphone, Art19, Omni, all bets are off on listeners' privacy with those services. Again, check the Overcast app to see if your favorite podcasts are tracking you. And hint, if they are, unsubscribe, or as we'll talk about later, unfollow. And Soapbox, I steppeth down. Back to the features. For those with a 5G iPhone and on T-Mobile and living in an area with 5G coverage, not my area, Apple added a standalone 5G network option. This way, you don't have to piggyback on LTE, and it's supposed to improve network connection speed and lower latency, which would be great for Fortnite if, Epic Games were not such idiots and had not broken the rules to get Fortnite kicked out of the Apple Store. Boo, Epic Games, boo. Speaking of 5G, for those that use the dual SIM feature, 14.5 introduced global support for 5G. Obviously, this is just for iPhone 12 models at this time. Prior to this update, dual SIM mode was only an LTE option globally, with the exception of China. Now, all globally can enjoy 5G on both lines. With 14.5, you can pick your default music streaming service you want Siri to use. There is no toggle for this, no place to find this in a menu. You need to ask Siri to, quote, play a song, unquote. Then Siri will give you a list of your music apps to choose from, and that will make the app that default app. It's kind of, just the way they're doing it. I don't understand that. But anyway, note, sometimes when you first ask Siri in 14.5 to play a song, it will play a random song from Apple Music. You might need to ask Siri to play a specific song. Either way, you're trying to get to the list of music apps to choose from and have one to be your default. Interestingly, with my iPhone, where I have Amazon Music app installed, it would not give me that one as an option. It listed Deezer, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, YouTube Music, and a bunch of podcast apps, but not Amazon Music app, which is on my iPhone and updated to the latest version and working fine otherwise. When you go to streaming settings, when you go to the settings app and you look in Amazon Music, the option use with Ask Siri is not showing. I tried doing resets, reinstalls, updates, but could not get it suggested. If anyone is able to get Amazon Music to be suggested by Siri, please let me know what you did. 206-666-6364. That's 206-MOON-DOG. Or email me todayinios@gmail.com. And speaking of music, as in the Apple Music app, there are some tweaks to the app. In the library, the download button is gone. In its place are 3 dots that, when tapped, give you multiple options. That includes delete from library, download, add to playlist, play next, play last, share song, view full lyrics, share lyrics, show album, love, and suggest less like this, which is basically a thumbs down. And actually I have a thumbs down emoticon. Also in the library, if you swipe to the right on a song, you can hook up with the artist. Wrong app. If you swipe right, you can then select to add that song to the now playing queue for either play next or play last. Blue is next, yellow/orange is play last in the queue. I mentioned the shared lyrics option from the triple dots. That is a new feature that lets you, send the lyrics of the song to a friend. By the way, you can also get to it by a long hold down on the song. This feature is a hit or miss feature depending on the song. I actually could not find a single song in my library that it worked with, but if you do find one it works with, when sending the lyrics, it will send also part of the song, and you can also send it to Instagram and have an Instagram moment. So it seems like a nice feature if you're really into music and you want to share that with your friends. For those subscribed to Apple Fitness Plus, which I really need to be one of those, with 14.5 and watchOS 7.4, you can enable Airplay 2 support for Apple Fitness Plus. This will allow you to stream your workouts to Airplay 2 enabled smart TVs or set-top boxes. But a big note here. Note: Apple Watch metrics are not able to be displayed on the TV when airplaying a workout from an iPhone or iPad. You will need to look at the iPhone or iPad to see the time remaining, calories burned, activity rings, and other info. So it's there, but not all the way there. Apple, quote, borrowed, unquote, a feature from Waze with crowdsourcing accident reports, plus hazard and speed checks. When in the Maps app and using directions, swipe up from the bottom and you will see an option called Report. Tap it and then choose the incident icon to report. And then you can choose, again, accidents, you can choose hazard, and you can choose what app calls speed check. So nice addition there. That should definitely improve the Apple's app as far as obstacles in your way as you're traveling. Switching to the Reminders app, Apple added a feature to sort lists by due date, creation date, priority, or title. And finally, they added an option to, print the reminder list. Thanks, Apple. About time. Per the News app, received, kind of a minor update, very, very minor update, with the addition of a new search tab. And the News Plus section has a For You feature added. And that's, again, if News Plus, you have to be the paid version there. Shortcuts, in the Shortcut app, there is a new action added for taking screenshots. They also added actions for switching between data modes, for locking the orientation of the screen, and for selecting between 5G Auto, and 4G network in the voice and data mode action. As you might be telling, this update 14.5 is a really big update. Lots of things here. And before we get on with all of them, I want to welcome back Freshly as a sponsor of the show. Right now, Freshly is offering our listeners $40 off your first 2 orders when you go to freshly.com/TII. This year, let Freshly's chefs take care of your meals a few nights a week and take the pressure off you. Freshly offers chef-made, nutrient-packed, delicious meals delivered fresh to your door. No cooking required, no face mask required to go out to the store. Freshly can fit your lifestyle with a variety of plans and meals to pick from that work for your dietary needs, preferences, tastes, and family size. With our moving from one city to another and from one temp to permanent housing, and then getting a house that needs a lot of work fixed up, it is really nice to not have to deal with extra grocery shopping and then the cooking and cleanup. We needed a break, and Freshly has been a really nice break. Stop stressing about dinner. Go to freshly.com/TII for $40 off your first 2 orders, and then choose from over 30 delicious, satisfying, better-for-you meals. A couple of my favorite meals have been the Sicilian-style chicken parmesan and the buffalo chicken. Both really great. Freshly can fit your lifestyle with a variety of plans and meals to pick from that work for your dietary needs, preferences, tastes, and family size. Try Freshly now for a limited time and get $40 off your first 2 orders. Go to freshly.com/TII to learn more. Thank you, Freshly, for sponsoring this show. And let us get back now into the rest of the iOS 14.5 beta features. And next up is, well, one for the family. And with 14.5, Apple added additional game controller support, adding support for Xbox Series X controllers and also the new PS5 DualSense controller. It is hoped and desired that tvOS 14.5 will also support both of these new controllers, which would make my sons happy as the Xbox Series X shares the big screen 4K TV with the Apple TV 4K. Speaking of games, in 14.5, apps can ask to connect to your Game Center friends for multiplayer experience. So that's also another nice little add-on there. Not so much a new feature yet, but this next one has code indicating it could be something new coming around family support for Apple Card, i.e. multiple people could use the same Apple Card account. But at this point, I'm not seeing Apple Card family share feature. Maybe something they turn on right when they release iOS 14.5 Goldmaster, or they save for a future update. And speaking of cards, German Giro cards can be added in 14.5 to the Wallet app to be used with Apple Pay. There is a report of using Siri to make emergency calls, as in, hey, SIRICALL, emergency, which will then call emergency services. However, some report this might not be an iOS 14.5 specific item and just something Apple just updated in the back end and is now working on earlier versions of iOS. Either way, it is a new feature that came out around the release of the 14.5 beta, and, well, not one I'm going to be testing with my devices, hopefully, nor am I going to even say that one without spelling it on the show. You're welcome. In the emergency alert setting, there is an option called Always Deliver, and you get there by going to Settings, Notifications, and scrolling all the way to the bottom, and then selecting Emergency Alerts. If you turn off Always Deliver, emergency alerts will not play a sound when the phone is in silent mode, meaning you will not be woken up in the middle of the night for an Amber Alert or some other non-life-threatening alert to you. However, earthquake, tsunamis, flash flood warnings still will play an audible alarm. And look, I don't mean to be callous about the Amber Alert, but if you get an Amber Alert at 2 in the morning and you're sleeping and you're in bed, you're not going to be someone that can help out with that Amber Alert, because if you do know anything about it, then you're the perpetrator, right? And if you don't know anything about it, you're just missing that Amber Alert, and when you wake up in the morning, you're not going to look at it. Whereas if it just goes off and then you don't look at it and doesn't wake you up, in the morning you have a chance to look at it and then actually help. But by them going off in the middle of the night, they're probably doing more harm than good when your alarm is set, when your phone is set to do not disturb. Speaking of safety, Apple is making safe browsing even safer by proxying Google's safe browsing feature through Apple's own servers to limit personal data that the the Google can collect from users. In Safari, that feature for fraudulent website warnings, that is designed to warn you if you're visiting a possible or suspected phishing site. Well, that feature is powered by Google's safe browsing database, which could allow Google to collect IP addresses. By now proxying this safe browsing feature and protecting your ID and IP address information, well, Apple is making it safer, again, limiting what Google and others can see. Apple added additional security updates with extended pointer authentication codes security provisions that are supposed to make zero-click attacks more difficult to pull off. Now, more difficult does not sound like not possible. How about not possible to execute? That'd be nice, wouldn't it? Zero-click attacks allow for a hacker to break into a device without any need for the user to do anything. This means it's harder for you as a user to know if something actually happened. Okay, now looking into this more, it seems that the update to 14.5 will kill off many of the exploits, quote, used by hackers and government organizations, unquote. Wow, that makes you feel all warm and fuzzy. Anyway, this update will make it significantly harder for those, quote, government organizations, unquote, to get into your device, as it should be. With the Find My App feature, there are some minor changes when asking Siri to locate a person. There are new sounds for locating beats in my Find My App as well. If you have an iPhone 12 and you attach or detach Apple's MagSafe wallet, there is a now much stronger haptic feedback. Ooh, exciting. In the code for iOS 14.5, there is the following that was found. Quote, to improve charging efficiency and maximize available battery life, the battery pack will keep your phone charged at around 90%, unquote. Which people found interesting as Apple does not call their battery packs. They call them smart battery case. So either this is a poor choice of words by an intern, or former intern, or Apple is possibly going to be rolling out some battery packs that they call battery packs. Apple said in the beta notes, quote, iOS and iPadOS 14.5 Beta 2 includes an optimization to reduce the appearance of a dim glow that might appear at reduced brightness levels with black backgrounds, unquote. Evidently, some in iPhone 11 and iPhone 12 users noticed a green glow when viewing black backgrounds. Feedback since Beta 2 was released has been mixed on this, with some saying it solved the issue and others saying it's still there. Maybe Beta 3, likely coming out around March 1st or 2nd, will address this again. Oh, I gotta yawn here for a second because it's time to talk about new emojis. Oh, yay. As in the heart on fire or heart wrapped in bandages, which I guess I could have used that one after the Super Bowl. The bandage one, that is. There is also a revamped needle emoji. So you can let people know when you got your vaccine shot with a better looking needle. There is also beards for all people emoji, which is great for letting people know that you just saw the bearded lady at the circus text. And, well, there are other emoji updates that you can find if new emojis are your kind of thing. And actually, if they are, there are 217 new emojis in iOS 14.5. Ooh, enjoy. Let's get into some iPad-specific features, as in iPadOS 14.5. Yay! A minor one, but nice, is that it shows they are, kind of paying attention to the little things for iPadOS, is if you boot up your iPad in horizontal mode, the Apple logo will be oriented correctly. Yay. Catching up with the iPhone on the emoji side, iPadOS 14.5, you can search for specific emojis. That was added in the iPhone with iOS 14. Again, this is a catch-up feature for the iPad. The Scribble feature expands the number of languages it works with. This still requires the Apple Pencil and now works with French, German, Italian, Portuguese, and Spanish. No support yet for Klingon. Come on, guys. Snap, get to it. Apple has added a feature to the Smart Folio that when it's shut, the built-in microphone is muted. This is to prevent, obviously, apps from allowing access to the microphone when the iPad is not being used. This is for the 8th gen iPad, the 11-inch iPad Pro 2nd gen, the 12.9-inch iPad Pro 4th gen, and the iPad Air. I do wonder if there is an option to turn that feature off if, for example, you did want to record audio. but wanted the cover closed. Maybe when doing an interview. Yeah, we'll go with that as an example. Also, with iPad OS 14.5, Apple is saying it will now be easier to set up a new iPad with a cellular connection. There's some other smaller tweaks like new colors to the Beats icons, Apple Watch accessibility option for headphone notifications where you can toggle that off. There's an update to the Hermes watch faces with new colors. So there's a bunch of other kind of smaller ones that have been made available. Maybe we'll see if there's anything new when Beta 3 comes out. Chances are not likely. Interfaces for typing to Siri and sending iMessages with Siri have received some minor update tweaks as well, and use Apple's more compact UI. Again, we'll see what happens in Beta 3, but my guess is in Beta 3 that, if anything, we might lose a feature or two rather than gain it. Third betas usually don't see many new features. And I would expect that that by the middle of the month, when the AirPod, what do they call Max Pro, the Max ones, the ones that go over your ears, the iPod Max, when those come out, the cans, that's when 14.5 will launch, because there's supposed to be a whole big shipment of those coming in the middle of the month. But with iOS 14.5, the biggest change, in my opinion, and I say this till the end, and it's a major update to the podcast app. This is the first real update to the Apple Podcast app since iOS 11. Most sites covering Apple and the iPhone and iOS, covering the 14.5 betas, glossed over this or did not even mention the update at all. Yes, they did not look into what changed or are not listening to podcasts. I'm going to go over this from both the podcasters and the listeners' perspective. First up, goodbye subscribe. Hello, follow. You no longer will subscribe to podcasts. You will now follow them. Apple is doing this because their research found consumers were getting confused by the word subscribe. You subscribe and pay for Apple Music. You subscribe and pay for Apple TV. You subscribe and pay for Apple Fitness Plus, and so on. But podcasts, you subscribe and you do not pay. And feedback was people thought subscribing meant pay, like it is in the rest of the Apple ecosystem. So Apple in iOS 14.5 changed it to follow, which is the same as subscribing. But they also de-emphasized that and added emphasis on playing episodes. When you go to a new podcast that you've searched for and you go to the page for that podcast, in iOS 14.4 and earlier, the biggest button was the subscribe button. Now it's a bigger button that says last or latest episode, and there's a play icon on there. Actually, there is no button that says follow. It's just a small plus icon in the upper right. As a podcaster, this means your first 30 seconds of your show better be tight and tell people what is coming, because Apple is now pushing people to sample play your latest episode. And you need to make sure every episode is tight on the most recent episode, right? And now, potential listeners, they need to really search to follow, quote unquote, your show. So it's all about playing your show, and that means the initial part of your shows should be tight, shouldn't be commercials, shouldn't be just rambling, should be something that tells them what the show, or that specifically that episode is about. So kind of like what we do at the beginning of this episode. And when someone does click the plus icon and it confirms they are following the show, the plus icon becomes a down arrow. If you tap the down arrow, you get a pop-up that allows you to unfollow the show. And another option is to turn on automatic downloads. That's correct. Automatic downloads are not turned on by default when someone follows. They need to take a second action to turn that on. For podcasters, this next item will be welcome news. Goodbye 300 episode limit for indexing, but hello really long RSS feeds. Since the launch of iTunes support for podcasts back in June of 2005, Apple has limited the number of episodes shown to 300, and more importantly, limited the indexing, i.e. what is searchable, to 300 episodes. This meant if you had an interview with a big celebrity that once they were over 300 episodes down your feed, they would no longer show in Apple Podcast search results. I should point out, if a feed has over 300 episodes and someone subscribed in the old days, all episodes were available to the end user. We're just talking about what Apple indexed for search results in their store and what they showed on the store page. And again, with iOS 14.5, Apple's getting rid of the 300 episode limit. They're opening it up, releasing the hounds. So for people like John Lee Dumas that have 2,000 episodes and multiple RSS feeds, he can consolidate down to one RSS feed for all 2,000 episodes. No more needs for archive feeds for Entrepreneur on Fire or any other show for that matter. For podcasters, the Apple summary field is going away. Apple had talked in the past about deprecating it, and they pulled the trigger with iOS 14.5. That means show notes, descriptions in Apple Podcasts will come from the description field only. If you host on Libsyn, you can quickly clear out the summary field if you want to. That's under the Apple Podcast bulk tag editor. You find that under content, just to get your show good with all the versions of iOS out there. New and noteworthy is gone in iOS 14.5 from the different categories, only remaining on the top level page. Per the app itself, the look of the search page changes quite a bit. When you go to the search icon, you will now see tiles below the search bar, the first one being top charts. Then there are different category tiles such as comedy, news, business, and more. Apple said they are going to be changing around what will be near the top over time, so it won't always be fixed with business and society and culture up near the top. Again, according to Apple, the Apple Podcast app in iOS 14.5 has seen more or the most dramatic changes since the update back in iOS 11. And many of these changes are meant for end users to make the app more inviting and again to get rid of the confusion around the word subscription. Thanks, Apple Podcast team, for all these changes. I'm excited as a podcaster and working for a podcasting company all around on these changes. So it's nice. It's good news for podcasting. Folks, if you have the beta, let me know your thoughts on the new Apple Podcast app. 206-666-6364 or shoot an email to todayinios@gmail.com. And then one quick note, if you have, and this is not about the Apple Podcast app, there's one more note on the updates here. If you have the Apple Watch SE or Apple Watch Series 5, there is an update just for you for watchOS 7.3.1. So I guess Apple did have one double dot update. This is to fix a bug with charging the watches. Check for the update if you have either Apple Watch, and if you are available, please, if it's available to you, please release the hounds on that, because it does seem to be an issue with some people getting the charge, especially if you ran the charge all the way down. Quick little update. Apple released some stats on February 24th. I love stats. Of all the iOS devices introduced in the last 4 years, currently 86% of them are on iOS 14, 12% on iOS 13, and just 2% earlier than that. Overall, 80% of all iOS devices active are on iOS 14, with 12% on iOS 13 and 8% an earlier version than that. Per iPads, 84% of those introduced in the last 4 years are on iPadOS 14, with 14% on iPadOS 13 and 2% an earlier version. Overall, 70% of all iPads active are on iPadOS 14, with 14% on iPadOS 13 and 16% on earlier versions. Hey, my original iPad still works. All of those stats from Apple are good news for devs, showing they can focus on the latest version or two of iOS, iPadOS for their apps and cover the vast majority of those out there. File this next one under Apple Giveth, Apple taketh away. From Apple, quote, "Thanks again for participating in the Universal Quick Start program and committing to build great apps for Mac. We're following up with shipping instructions to return the Developer Transition Kit, DTK, that was loaned to you as part of the program. Please take a moment to review these details and ship all DTKs back to us by March 31st, 2021. As we mentioned in our last email, upon confirmed return of the DTK, you'll receive a credit for $500 in the form of a one-time use promo code valid until the end of 2021. You can use it towards the purchase of a new M1 Mac or other Apple products ordered through the Apple Store online," unquote. Note, devs had to pay $500 to get the dev units, so Apple is just paying them back if they're in the US. Problem for some is that Apple is converting to local currency, and if your currency value went down versus the dollar, you wind up losing money. My question is, what happens if you hold on to the unit, though? It's not like Apple's going to send someone to your house to rip it out of your hands. I wonder how much it'll be worth 10 years from now on eBay. Guess Apple could theoretically brick them from afar, but still, for some devs, I could see them not wanting to deal with returning the unit. Not that they really want the unit, just that they don't want to deal with the hassle of having to get the shipping information and get it out to the store or have someone come by and pick it up. Apple really should just refund the money and let the devs keep the units. Then they don't need to pay for shipping of the units back, which, by the way, uses up energy and burns carbon, which they will not be doing anything with those units because now they're going to have to recycle them, which again takes up energy and burns carbon. So it's kind of like buying something from Wayfair when you think about it. When you go to return it, they usually just give you your money back and tell you to throw out the item rather than having them pay for shipping. So, when you think about all of this, for a company that's supposed to be so green, Apple, this isn't a very green decision having people ship all these units back to you that you then just go and throw away or recycle. The better choice here would be just to return the money and not pay for shipping back, not have that carbon footprint issue, and let the devs keep the units and actually use them. Just saying.
Hi Rob, I've got an Apple Watch 6th generation and I wondered, is there a feature to pair a Bluetooth speaker to the watch and also sync the music without it being on the charger? I hope you could help. It's John Petrie from Sydney, Australia. Thank you.
John, thanks for the voicemail. And yes, you can connect an Apple Watch to a Bluetooth speaker. Open the app you want to play audio from and on the Apple Watch, then tap and hold near the bottom and swipe up. Then scroll down to the icon that is a triangle below what looks like 3 stacked circles. Once that is open, scroll down and select Connect a Device, then select the Bluetooth speaker. You will need to put the Bluetooth speaker in pairing mode for this to work, but I just did it with a Bluetooth speaker and I had it, and it was easy and able to pair it in just a matter of a minute or less and play a podcast from my Apple Watch directly to the Bluetooth speaker. So yes, you can absolutely do it, but you do need to do the pairing, and you need to go and find the icon again. It looks like a little triangle with 3 circles stacked on top of each other above the triangle. Into the email bag we go. Hi Rob, when I was looking at upgrading from the iPhone 6 to the iPhone 12, I wound up purchasing the 12 Pro. Lots of nice changes. I looked at the magnetic case, and I don't have a pacemaker, but people that do should not get it. Regards, Earl in London, Canada. Well, thank you, Earl, for the heads up on that. Back to the email bag. Hi, Rob. Love your podcast and have been listening since episode 25. I have a problem. Updated iOS from 14.3 to 14.4 on a new iPhone 12 Pro Max 256 and have major battery drain and overheating. Have turned off background refresh, and many other things. Is it a known problem, and can I revert back to iOS 14.3? Thanks for all your time and efforts, Tom. And then I replied back, hi, Tom. Thanks for the kind words. First thing I would suggest is force quitting all open apps. Then go to settings, and you guessed it, select reset and reset network settings. Then see if your battery life improves. Per being able to revert back, no, Apple stopped signing 14.3 right after 14.4 came out, meaning you cannot downgrade. And then Tom replied back, thanks, Rob. I checked battery usage and it was at 90% plus with Norton 360. I contacted Norton and was told it was with the iOS. Contacted Apple and diagnostics showed no iOS problems. Recontacted Norton and then deleted, then reinstalled Norton 360 and battery drain was better but still unacceptable. I deleted it again, reinstalled, then rebooted my iPad phone and all is well. Again, really appreciate your efforts to help and educate. Regards, Tom. Well, thanks, Tom, for the kind words, and thanks for, again, sending in the email. And now we go to a voicemail.
Hi, Rob. This is Tom from New York. Long-time listener. I've been with you since episode 1. The question of jailbreaking. Jailbreaking is a means of independence. I give iPhone thousands of my dollars, and then they tell me what I can do with my phone. I don't think that that's correct. That's why I am a lover of jailbreak. It's a form of independence. And that's just about it. But why would I give someone so much of my money to have them tell me what I could do with what I spend my money on. Thanks for your time. I love your show. Been a long time listener, and will continue to do so. Have a great day. Very happy with you on your move. Good luck to you in your new home. Talk to you soon. Tom from New York.
Tom, thanks for the kind words. Thank you for listening all these years. Thank you for continuing to listen. And most importantly, thank you for the feedback on why you are still jailbreaking. So, is it too soon to talk about iPhone 13 or iPhone 2021 or whatever it's going to be called? Of course not. So here is the latest from the rumor mills. And mind you, most of this is based on speculation at best from those reporting it, not inside sources or sources in the know. Whenever you hear at this time of year people saying sources in the know or I had an inside source, that means I'm speculating this and I'm taking what's called a swag, scientific wild ass guess. There would be likely 4 new versions. Let's call them iPhone 13, iPhone 13 mini, iPhone 13 Pro, and iPhone 13 Pro Max. Because wow, talk about going out on a limb, guys. Yeah, but that's what they're saying is this is a prediction for this year. They're predicting that the Apple iPhone event will move back to September cadence, with release of the iPhone lining up about 1 week prior to the end of the quarter, and that is Apple's also the end of their financial year, i.e. that means the iPhone 13s would likely start shipping out, or some versions of them would start likely shipping out on Friday, September 17th, as Apple's fiscal year ends on Saturday, September 25th. Backing up for there, you could expect the Apple event to be around September 8th, and maybe September 7th, somewhere in that time frame. Per specs for the iPhone 13, I would expect the Pros to go from 120 frames per second refresh rate, or go up to, from the current 60, and maybe even support Apple Pencil 2. That's also what the rumors are saying, and that was what I said after the last iPhone 12 was announced. I was hoping for 120 frames per second then, and I said, well, when they didn't have it, and because I don't have 5G where I live currently, I said, I'll wait for the iPhone 13 for hopefully to get that 120 frames per second for refresh rate. Things look a lot smoother that way. There are, of course, rumors about improved cameras. As if, it's always improved. One possible improvement will be zoom, like a periscope zoom. And one is said as what they're going to call astronomy mode or astrophotography mode for shooting the night sky. That would be nice. I have yet to see a great photo of a full moon taken from any iPhone sans any third-party add-on lens. So maybe the theme could be into the night. And we'll see. Maybe there'll be like little stars and some dark theme to the invite. And they might even improve more on the night photos. We'll see. But that would be nice. And the astrophotography mode. I like that. I like that rumor. And that would be something I'd really like because I have never come close to taking a good photo of the moon. And again, I have never seen a good photo of the moon taken from an iPhone. Some are rumoring that Apple will switch to a USB-C port. Others say that Apple will get rid of the charging port altogether. And you guessed it, others are saying that Apple will keep it as is. So in short, no one knows what the heck Apple's going to do there, which tends to mean no change. Finally, some are rumoring that Apple will go back to Touch ID in the iPhone 13, putting it right on the screen. Evidently, this is because of issues with Face ID and masks. I could see Apple doing both, Touch ID in the screen for Face, and then continuing on with Face ID as well. Add in the Apple Watch Unlock feature we mentioned earlier, and it's a nice grouping of ways to securely unlock your iPhone. Pricing likely would line up with current pricing. And let's not forget, there will be 1 or 2 new colors to choose from. No one's rumoring on that, but hey, let's go with Midnight Black to go with that astrophotography mode. Matter of fact, right now, Apple's got to be making the choice on colors, right? So they have to be deciding right now what colors are going to be needed come September. So if we look at the trendy colors right now, and we look through some of those trendy colors, I'm going to pick Burnt Coral. I think Burnt Coral sounds like something that Apple would release. I just don't see them going with a French blue or rust. Rust doesn't sound like something you really want to call on your phone. Green ash, no. But burnt coral, I like that. There's raspberry sorbet. That's a little rough on the eyes. And then there's Amethyst Orchid. That would be my second guess. So the coral or the Amethyst Orchid. We'll see which one Apple comes out with in the spring or fall. Maybe it's both of them for the new colors in the iPhones. There's always some new color in what's going to be the iPhone 13 line, and there'll be a new color in the iPhone Pro Max line. So there's both of those series usually have one new major color. So let's see what Apple rolls out come September. And again, right now, Apple's making that choice, and you have to look at what's trending right now. When you look at that, again, the Amethyst Orchid is pretty popular. It's kind of a purple. And then, as I mentioned, the other one was the Burnt Coral. Let's see if those two make their ways into Apple's lineup come September. Okay, Glass.
That's like comparing apples and not apples.
Okay, Glass.
I offer no resistance to helpful assistance.
Thanks once more to our sponsor for this episode, Freshly. Make eating better your New Year's resolution and get a special limited time offer. Go to freshly.com/TII for $40 off your first 2 orders. And before we go today, I want to remind you to send in your feedback to the show. 206-666-6364. That's 206-Moondog. Or record your feedback and email it to the show at todayandios@gmail.com. Feedback can be a question or comment for something someone said on this episode, or it can be a question or rant or something else, an app, a product review, good or bad. As long as it's iOS related, it is welcomed. I'm always looking for new artwork, as I mentioned earlier, to feature that you create on an iOS device. Just put some TII branding on it, make it square, and send it in. And of course, we're always looking for more music created on an iOS device to play on the show. It's your show, and your feedback is greatly desired. And let me know your rumors for iPhone 13s. We're getting into that season, so let's start talking about that. Also, don't forget to check out our moderated MeWe community by going to todayandios.com/community. When you go there, you need to request to be added. I have 2 questions. First one seems to quickly weed out the Android fanboys. I ask, which is the better OS, iOS or Android? And well, the Android fanboys can't bring themselves to say iOS. They say either both or Android, and then, I just reject them. So yeah, it's nice, safe Android fanboy free zone where you can ask questions or post articles about pretty much anything Apple related and not have to worry about folks jumping on you. And finally, check out the Tii app, which is free to you. Search for TII in the iOS App Store. It is the best way to consume the show and to get push notifications each time a new episode of TII is released. It is fully voiceover friendly, of course. Please go right now and download the Tii app and get the update if you already have it. Until the next time, I'm your host, Rob, reminding you to phone different. The show is hosted on Libsyn.com and part of the Libsyn Media Network. If you are looking for podcast hosting, go to Libsyn.com. That is Libsyn.com for hosting for your podcast and creation of your own smartphone app. The Today in iOS podcast can be found everywhere you listen to podcasts. That includes Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Overcast, Stitcher, and everywhere else you listen to audio.